ever think about what whittling is? You sit there, you see them doing this. Mayberry, you see that a lot on TV, okay? Now, I always figured they're either making something or they're just biding their time. I'm not sure which. But anyway, we've come a long ways in wood carving, you know, from the jackknife. I still use jackknife for wood carving, but there's knives that are a lot safer than that. So we're going to talk about that tonight a little bit. I started when I was a young boy with just a jigsaw. I had an old jigsaw my brother had, and I had a little knife. And we didn't have a lot of money, so if I wanted a toy gun, I would jigsaw out the shape of a gun, and then I would carve it, make it round, and put a barrel and trigger and things on it. So that's how I got started. So wood carving for me really turned out to be a very enjoyable hobby. And then when the people started wanting to buy things, then I turned into a business, all right? So I'm enjoying that right now myself. A little bit about wood carving. It's been used for years. It goes back as a decoration. You read about it in the Bible, about carvings and different things. Archaeologists, when they go in these big tombs and stuff, they'll uncover these coffins. Some of these coffins are elaborately carved. Not everything was carved out of stone back in those days. And even in the Bible, you talk about burning idols. They'd get the idols, but they'd burn them. Well, only wooden ones would burn. Some of those stone ones wouldn't. So carving goes way, way back. And back in the early times, too, carving was also very functional. They'd make spoons, and they'd make bowls and everything. Now, this is not your typical spoon that you'd eat lunch with, but I do eat cereal with this one. And I eat it at Easter time, with an Easter. But you can make, there's so many things in carving that you can make and do. From decorations to useful things to things you just want to give somebody a gift or whatever. And I'm going to talk about all the different kinds of carving that there are. The skill actually goes back, like I said, many, many, many years. And training, back in the early days, training was handed down usually from father to son. And over in Ramagau, Bavaria, back in 1835, there was about 2,000 wood carvers over there. They did it for a living. And it was usually fathers, sons, probably some daughters in there too. I got to put those in, okay. But anyway, and even today, if you take it, they've done some surveys over there now, and there's still 2,000 wood carvers in Ramagau. And also in Ramagau, there's a big training school over there. And in some of the carving magazines, I've laid some over on that table over there, you'll see where there's classes offered over in Ramagau. Very expensive to go over there and take a class, but they do a lot of these European-type sculptures. A lot of sculpture work is done over there. So it's still going on. In the 1950s and 60s, it almost become a lost art, except for over in Europe. But in this country, modern design kind of crept in around the 50s and 60s. You see fancy refrigerators. We went from the old ice boxes, then we went to the Kelvinators, where they used to have a big cooler thing up on top. Then we went to fancy refrigerators. But you see all the design work and so on that went through the 60s. Wood carving started to become almost extinct in this country. And only recently, about 1970, wood carving started having a resurgence and coming back, and a lot of it became a hobby kind of thing. But now there's even there's a lot of businesses going on now where they carve, a lot of carvings done on chair backs, on tables, and so on. It's starting to come back. Now, in the wildfowl, what I mean by ducks and birds and everything, that had a real resurgence in the 70s. They started running contests and carving shows nationally, and the World Championships held in Ocean City, Maryland every year, and they come from all over the world. And my brother and I competed down at the World for about 14 years up until he passed away. Then I stopped going down because I kind of lost interest. But we competed down there at that level. So, and I'm going to show you some of the birds and some of the things that get a little more intricate with them. A lot of people hesitate getting into wood carving because they feel it's too hard to do that. I don't know if some of them are here tonight. Fitzy, Gilbert's in our carving club over here. By the way, we do have a carving club in Candor. We've only got about 3 or 4 people from Candor that belong to it. Most of the people come from Endicott, Newfield, Binghamton, Ithaca, Elmira. And we was kidding about it the other night at our meeting. We said, there's not many people here from Candor, and yet the carving club's in Candor. But these people come faithfully every Monday night over to the library at 7 o'clock to the carving meetings. And once a month we have a business meeting, which we have a show and tell. People bring in what they've worked on in books or anything new in the carving field, and we talk about it. But I'd like to see some more of you people from Candor start coming to the Candor Catatonk Valley Woodcarvers Club. Love to have you. Easy to get started. Let me just talk a little bit about that. Move quickly here. All you need to get started is a knife, some kind of a strap here to keep your knife sharp, all right? A piece of wood, and an idea. And that'll get you started. Over on that table over there, I think I've got one here. I've got a book. There's lots of books out now. There's tons of books out on carving. If you can't get to a teacher or whatever, Tom Wolfe puts out a lot of books on wood carving. They're all a lot of character kind of things, but all the way through the book, it's step by step. So you can kind of teach yourself if you want to at home. So there's no excuse where you're not, if you want to get into wood carving. I say this, when I first started carving, there's probably 4 or 5 books out on bird carving. And I wanted to get into carving birds to begin with. And so I started out with a Bruce Burke book out in California. And the tools they used back in those days for carving birds was a wood rasp. You'd lock your bird into a vise, and you'd do all the shaping on your duck body or whatever with a wood rasp and a couple chisels, and that was it. But then all of a sudden, the wood carvers that wanted to get more and more detail, we started using dental tools and all kinds of rotary grinders, which could get more and more detail with it. Now these are there's some unfinished pieces. This is the wood duck I'm doing for Don Yeyer over here, in fact, who ordered it from me. And that's where that stands. And there's 3 other pieces here. Every wood carver has some unfinished pieces in the shop sitting around. And when I get time and I get inspired, I'll go work on the eagle a little while. So, but you don't need much to get started. Great. Tools. Let me just talk a little bit about tools. The early carvers started out with knives and chisels, like I said. That's what they used. And I've got a variety of them up here. I won't go through all of them with you. But there's all kinds of gouges and all kinds of shapes. These are very sharp. Probably one of the most dangerous tools to use besides the knife. But these are, I think gouges are even more dangerous than knives. But there's every shape and size. There's what they call spoon gouges, which you can dish out things, and I'll show you one of those. This is a type of spoon gouge. I've got more chisels at home. I didn't bring them all with me tonight. So you can see it shaped a little bit like a spoon. And you can get in there to carve with things. And as you start getting into this hobby, you'll keep buying more and more tools. I mean, this is another little set. I've got more home. I just brought you some examples. But different shapes and sizes. Knives. Here's a little detail knife, a fancy one. And when I had a fellow come up and teach for us, I had to have this one because it felt better. But some of these run up to $35, $40 a piece. Now you can start carving with about an $18 knife, which one I showed you here, which is a detail knife. It's called Flex Cut. Makes it. It's a cheap little knife, but it works really well. Talk about safety. If you look close, you want to come up and look at my hand. That's about a $1,000 cut right there. And you can see where it almost comes through my hand here. But after that, I wear a glove now, okay, when I'm carving. The glove laid right there beside me, but I didn't bother with it. So I just thought I'd talk about that because you will get cut if you're gonna carve. Then you get right down to the small little gouges. These are what you call, they look like toys, but they're not. There's a little 3mm gouge, but they're small, little tiny tools. And on small character carvings and so on, you use these a lot. Let's go over here now. You go from the chisels to the knives and so on. This is back in the old days. Now, what's happened? It's gotten more modern. Now, I can carve both ways. I can carve with knives and chisels and do it the old way. But when I do a duck body now, when you're doing it for a business, you want to hurry. You want to get it done. And you want to take forever sitting there with a wood rasp. This is called a fordham. And normally when you use these are rotary grinders. They're carbon cut-saws. They're really coarse. They're a very dangerous tool to use. And when you're using these, you get a lot of dust. So I got a dust mask. You want a leather apron, and I'll tell you why. Because with these, when I first bought that, I thought, oh, I have a lot of fun. I sit there with a t-shirt one night, and I started it up. Let me start this for you. It's like driving a car. You got a foot pedal. It's a flexible shaft. I'm sitting there carving away, and I caught my T-shirt. Well, underneath my T-shirt, I have a little hair on my chest, too. It didn't last long, okay? And so that's why the leather apron now. And you'll notice on here a lot of little scuff marks and stuff. So, I know from being, I was a shop teacher to begin with years and years and years ago. And so I wanted to cover all the safety aspects, right, Terry? Yeah. So, then, after you rough, I use them to rough out the bodies. Then when I want to get down to fine detail, then I use these little 55 to 60,000 RPM little motors. You're not wagging the dog. It's just like using a magic marker. You can get fine detail. You're using dental bits. They're made out of rubies and ground diamonds. And then, when we get done, if anyone wants to come up, I can show them how I can show you how to do a feather. I mean, you can see what a feather looks like. Then after you do all your shaping with your feathers and carve them in, then of course you want to burn them in. This is part of the process. The burning tools. Now that's something that came out. When they first had the burning tools, when I got into bird carving, it was a light bulb, one heat, and that was it. And it was hard to hold. The thing was way out here, and you're trying to do detail with it. Now they've come out with these real fine little burning tools, and you can get a tremendous amount of detail with them. When you get into competition at the world level, you've got to get into the detail, or the guy ahead of you is going to beat you. So, and birds take a lot of detail. The early birds, when you went to competition, they looked pretty crude and rough. And then as the equipment got better, all the carving and the detail got better too. Holding devices. Well, for big pieces a lot of times, I'm going to show you a blue heron I did for the county in a minute with a PowerPoint. And I used a barber chair, hydraulic barber chair, and I fastened that body to that so I could move it around because I couldn't hold it in my lap. I normally carve in my lap, and I wear out my jeans in my left leg right in there. But, so, holding devices, mostly vices, that kind of thing. Again, you can adapt some things to fit yourself. Woods. Some of the most common types of wood, and I got a little chart up here to show you. Pine and basswood is primarily the main thing. This eagle here was carved out of pine. This man, the farmer with his barn on his head, was carved out of basswood. Then walnut's another type of wood. Butternut carves well. Catalpa, mahogany. And then I got a little piece of wood here called tupelo. Now tupelo's really fine grain, even finer grain than basswood. And what happens with tupelo is a wood that you want to grind. It grinds well. Basswood grinds, but it leaves fuzz when you grind it. Basswood's made to carve with a knife. When you cut it, you get a nice clean cut. But I have some little tricks I can show you when I do feathers, when I'm working with basswood, to get rid of the fuzz, okay? And let's see, somebody walk some of these things through and I'll show you. This is made out of pine. This is, I say, an unfinished eagle that I was hoping to make it for a headboard for our bed someday. Well, I'm 74, and I don't think I'm going to make it. But, and then little rabbits made out of basswood, unfinished pieces, a little girl holding a teddy bear, which I had never finished yet. And that's out of, this was out of wet pine. And when I say by wet pine, you can take pine as soon as it's cut, but you start out, you have to get a big chunk of log like this. You cut it in the middle to get the stress out, and then you square it off on the one side of the fifth mark in the center. It won't crack or anything on you. You can carve it while it's wet, let it dry out. And when I carve pine, I usually soak it in a bucket for 2 or 3 days with a brick on top. And then I'll keep the bucket of water right there while I'm carving it, and it's just like carving butter when it's wet. Basswood doesn't work that way. Pine works well there. I say there's so many things you can carve. Just talk a little bit about canes. This is the cane. This is how they start. I like my canes without adding a handle to them. I like to start out with a root. So these grow in the ground like this. Okay? So this is what it would look like when you first go in the ground and cut them out. And then you ponder on this over the months while you're in your shop. What am I going to make out of all that funny looking roots? This one here, if you want to come up and look at it, this is a mother otter. Her father, the mother, and 2 babies. All right? So, you look at them root systems and you come up with some creative ideas. Now, I made a lot of canes, but they're gone and sold, so I don't have them. This was a character head I did. And just mounted on a stick. And this happens to be, I think this was out of, what do they call it, sassafras, where you get the vines go around them. So I just left the vine right on there. I haven't done much more with it, but it's a walking stick. So canes are another thing that you can do with carving. You have a good time with it. By the way, while I'm talking about this tonight, I also want to give credit to, I didn't have any chip carving. Chip carving, this is what chip carving is. Come up and look at it. It's all little cuts, geometric cuts out of wood. And Larry Howe let me borrow these pieces so I could show you a little example of chip carving. It's used to decorate boxes. Okay. It's used to decorate plates. You want to give somebody a nice gift, it's a nice gift to give somebody. Then Dave Okonski, I didn't have any fish to show because I sold all the fish I had. So Dave generously let me borrow a couple of his fish. And he's a good fish target. This is a little, oh, by the way, I'm going to ask you not to pick up these things and handle them if you would. I appreciate it. This is the little Palomino trout. Got lots of action to it. This is a black crappie he carved. So, Tupelo, I'm going to get back to it a little bit. Tupelo wood, I use it a lot on birds now, and on songbirds especially, or on birds like that blue heron when you see it, that was made out of Tupelo. And what Tupelo does when you grind it, it doesn't fuzz, and when you burn it, it burns beautiful. All these feathers detail you see when you come up and look at them, all these feather details on these birds, all these little barbs on there, all burned in one at a time with a burning tool. So people ask you how much you charge for your birds, and you tell them. That lady called me one day and says, I want to buy a bird off me. And I says, okay, for Christmas. She said, yeah. She says, this was 2 weeks before Christmas. And I said, well, I can't do it right now. She said, but you don't understand. I'm willing to pay $50 for it. I said, well, let me tell you what I start from. My duck started at 800. It was click. That was it. But now you understand why, people understand why the hours that go into that. You know, it's very expensive. Here's something else you can toy around with, a large fly. All right? And if you look at the barbs on that, all those little barbs on there are burned in one stroke at a time with a burning tool, just to give an example. Then you can have a lot of fun with carvings by little character things. Here's a little toothpick holder, a little snake coiled around the toothpicks, and he's got a smiley face. These are some of the things we do in Catatonga Valley Woodcarvers, the classes we taught. This is a little class I taught on a bookworm, with a book. Let me see. This is a class I taught over. This is a replica of an old children's toy. That's a donkey. You can also do an elephant for the Republicans. This we had a lot of fun with. This is called Guppus catatonchus. It's a little fish. Let me read you about that. Guppy, or Guppus catatonchus, is a small, fat, but hardy fish that lives in the Catatonk Creek in Cantor, New York. It's a bottom feeder and a close friend of the blue-tick turtle. This fish is a favorite food of the booted red heron and makes a delectable bite-sized morsel for the Carpus catatonchus. Therefore, it never grows very big. The fish gets its color from the excess of sunshine in the Catatonga Valley. Its large eyes and long eyelashes are very attractive to the male of the species. We have a lot of fun with some of this stuff, too. In fact, one of the things we're going to carve pretty soon, I think I'm going to teach a class on the blue-tick turtle. And then we're going to do probably the red-booted heron. So, see, what was another class? I just finished teaching this class for Christmas. Get into the Christmas things, all right? It's a hanging Santa. And you can make these faces, look any way you want to. This was a little nativity scene that I put together. Kind of designed it myself, all out of one piece of wood. Of course, you got to have a reindeer. And look closely at the bells when you come up. This is Santa Claus with their little pies there in their hand. And then Mr. Santa Claus, laying back, enjoying himself. Then if you look around behind him, and then of course you can do Christmas ornaments of all kinds. I've got enough now pretty much to do a tree. But you come up here and see him, you'll see it's a little skater. But you can do all kinds of Christmas ornaments. Then let's get into women's jewelry. And even a Christmas, here's a Santa Claus with a pin on the back. Here's a red cardinal, carved for jewelry. And here's some other examples. Here's a rooster. Now these I used to sell down the Christmas tradition when they were open. You know, a lot of jewelry. I call these bread and butter items. You know, they sell for $20 or whatever, and they sell pretty good. You know, a little rabbit. These are pendants for women. I really like, I favor Indian patterns a lot. So they were always a pretty good seller. People that can't afford a whole duck, boy, don't miss out on the sale. These are a couple of things we did in the Catatonk Valley Woodcarvers. These are a couple little hobos with their bandanas, and they're going to go on top of a walking stick, you know, a regular walking stick. I just haven't put them on there yet. They fall in the same category as unfinished carvings. Talk about different styles. Now this is called a relief carving. Relief carving is when you carve into a piece of wood. This is a sample of relief carving. When you get up here to look at them. These are all what you call carvings in the round. You know, the little cocky rooster. Those are carvings in the round. Oh, this is a good one. I wouldn't advise you men for Valentine's Day to give your wife a buzzard, okay? I did this. It says, waiting to be your Valentine. It went over really good. Part of bird carving. This was a class I taught. I was running classes up home there for a while, and I had a place to do it. This was an eagle head that I taught, class I taught. That was a lot of fun to do. Then you get into Civil War characters, chip carving on eggs. Let's see what else. Oh, the Grinch. This was one I did for my grandson for Christmas. At our Christmas Eve in Westgate, for years, all the gifts have to be handmade. They can't be bought. So that's an example. This is another one I did, I think, for my daughter-in-law. No, it's my son. I gave it to Dan. Little goose with big shoes on. So I say you can have a lot of fun with carving. Here's a little character that there's a fish underneath here with a hook, and the hook is on his beard. The sign says no fishing. So he's kind of looking up. Georgia likes moose, so I did this for her for Christmas. A stuffed chair with a bow tie. This Christmas I had my grandson's name again, so I did him. He likes to sing and he's into music, so I did him what you call karaoke. Cherokee Indian with a microphone in hand. This is a relief carving here. It's an Indian princess. This is a puffin, which is a bird I see up along the East Coast, and down on the West Coast too. They have a tufted puffin. Blue-winged teal, duck. Come up, you can see. Look at all the tertial feathers in the primaries on there. You can see the detail from the burning. Okay. And of course, I say the man with the barn on his head. This piece here, I was a student teacher at Ithaca High School, teaching shop, and so I did this piece way back a long time ago, and I did it in the shop. I had an 8th period, which is a study hall in the shop, and so I used to work on this during that study hall. The next thing you know, I had a little class going, and there was girls in there and boys in there both. I mean, but this is an old piece I did, and I carved this just with a plain old flat carpenter's chisel. It was in the shop. They didn't have any gouges. They didn't have regular carving tools. So I found out it's a lot easier with gouges. Over here I've set up a little painting station. I didn't bring everything, but this is supposed to have water in it, but it doesn't. There's a couple birds here that don't have legs yet. But when I'm painting, I put them on a paint stick, so I don't have to handle them, because the oil off your hands, when you paint them, it won't stick. And I paint with acrylics mostly. And I just brought some samples. You can use the Ceramcoat paints. They're pretty cheap, 89 cents to $1, $1.25. Then you get into more expensive. I use these more on my birds when I go into competition, because I want good paints. But these are $4 to $5 a tube. But these are Josinian paints. Right? Give you a very soft look with feathers. If you use Liquitex or Grombacher or acrylics, you'll get a little sheen. And you don't want sheen. I'll put the sheen on myself. I don't want to use it in the paints. Okay, I have a way to, some birds have a shiny breast and stuff. When I'm painting and carving, I have a 5-drawer file with everything, characters, every bird that you can think of. I keep a file like this. I cut out pictures. And when I'm painting, I use this cedar waxwing that I did here. I use all these to to help me with my painting and stuff. So you keep lots and lots of reference materials. Paint brushes. You want to keep them neat and clean, and keep them wrapped. And I think Betty Okonski, is this one you made, Betty?
No, I didn't.
You didn't? Okay.
No, maybe Cheryl did.
Maybe Cheryl. I guess Cheryl did make that one. So you keep your brushes nice and clean and everything. And when you're painting with birds, you want to set your paints quick. So I use a hairdryer, but I haven't got it plugged in. Anyway, you know what a hairdryer sounds like. But set your paints real quick so that you don't want them dry them slow. You want to get them set so you can go on and put another wash on top of that. Okay? So what I'm going to like to do right now is, oh, by the way, there is catalogs out there for buying carving supplies. MDI is one I buy from out in Bar Harbor, Maine. Call him one day, you got your stuff in 2 days. He's been a real fine man as far as getting things to us and everything. Okay, I'm going to save time for questions and answers, but now I'd like to, Gene Stradley's been really nice about putting together a little PowerPoint for me. You want to get the lights over there? No. What I'm going to show you is kind of a gallery of some of my carvings. So if you have any questions later, so we can talk about them. But I'll talk about each one of these carvings real quickly because I don't want to keep you here real late tonight. So go ahead, Gene. Okay, that's good enough. Okay, this is the blue heron I did for the tourism for Tioga County. The blue heron is the logo for tourism for Tioga County because there's so many of them along the rivers and creeks. So they went through a state grant for them to be able to buy this, and so it was good for me and good for them. Let's put it that way. And this right now, it has been over the legislative auditorium for a year or two, I think, on the stage. It's been all over. It's traveled all the Tioga State banks. And it was down at on Route 81. What do you call those? Welcome centers. It's been at welcome centers and so on. Tioga State Bank bought the big glass case that goes over and protects it. And so we let them, every one of the banks have it for a while. But this right now is going to be in the tourism office right on North Avenue as you go in. You have a new office there now. And it's going to be right in the window. So it shows you a little detail of them. But this is full size. Took me quite a while. And this is the one I had to put on a barber chair to get it up where I could work on it. Hard to hold my lap. Go ahead, Gene. This is a little chickadee. It's stylized chickadee, so I did a kind of a stylized branch for it with a little leaf. This is a loon. I don't know where I got that blue ribbon at, one of the shows I went to. But this is a full-size loon, and they're usually about that big. They're a big bird. Okay. This is Becky Halstead, who's now a general. When she graduated from West Point, I carved this holder for her saber. And so this cap pulls off, and you take the saber out. But Becky had that right after she graduated from West Point, so that's quite a while ago. This is a piece I did for a lady up in Cape Cod. It's about, I think I remember, it's about 36 inches, 3 feet across it. Stylized seagull standing on a wharf with stylized ocean waves under there. This is my first World Championship duck back in 1981. I entered the World Championship that year and took this down, and I took first place at the World. And that duck probably now wouldn't even place at the World now. And I did this with some of the old burning tools and things that they didn't have, you know, the old ones they used to use. The detail is not in this bird like they have now. This was a piece I did for the State Police Barracks up in Norwich, New York. This is the carving. It was out of pine. That's about almost 3.5 feet in diameter. And this was after it was painted. Okay, another loon. All right. This shows you before a lot of the details put in. The wood duck shows you the burning. Okay, all this is burned one stroke at a time. The loon wasn't quite finished. That's the one you saw in the picture before. This was the hen wood duck that went with the drake. That's a drake wood duck on the end of the table down there, the male. Okay, this took best of class in the world back in 1990. This is the Bob White quail. And everything down there has to be made. You can't use a stump out of an old stump. You gotta make your own stump out of new wood, make it look old. Your barbed wire has to be out of new wire, make it look old. The leaves in this little piece of grass I made are all out of sandwich bags, the brown sandwich bags. But there's a little process you go through to make them look like leaves and feel like leaves, right? Bake them in an oven, it just takes a lot of work. This is a rainbow trout. Now we're talking about spoons. They have a category now, and you see in the catalogs they have classes on it called love spoons. And this is one I did for Carmen Family Dentistry up in Endicott. It was a gift from my daughter-in-law. They have a Christmas time, they draw names and they have to give a gift to somebody. So I carved this little spoon for her. But love spoons, you'll see them in the carving magazines. There's all kinds of patterns, all kinds of intricate. They call them. You give them to them on weddings. You can give them for the wedding gift. You can give them to your wife or your girlfriend or whoever on Valentine's Day. Okay. This is a little Santa Claus I did. I donated to the Historical Society down in Owego, last year, and it was bid on. They have their, what do they call it, Tannenbaum, at Christmas time down there, and so I even donate a piece to them. Charles Bassett Youth Foundation in Owego. I did this piece out of mahogany. This is what you call incised carving. That was a pretty good sized sign. It was up this big. Now, Robert still has it in the building. He hasn't put it up. He's going to put it up right on Lake Street there in front of his building, but it's still in his office back there somewhere. This is Hiawatha Family Dentistry. I did one for Pam Balton in Owego. And again, I carved this for her, and in the meantime, her sign hangs like this outside her building, right there on Main Street. Main Street. But in the meantime, after I got the sign carved, they planted trees in front of the sign. So she hasn't put this up yet either. So and this is two-sided. This is the Santa Claus I did this year for the museum in Owego, which was auctioned off. This is a piece I just did for a gentleman who's been a good customer of mine. He's into mountain man things. He likes the pioneer kinds of things and everything. So he gave this to his girlfriend for Christmas. So I did an Indian tomahawk buried in a little stump, which is made out of real, new wood, make it look old. I did little feathers on the handle. Those are all burned and carved in, and then the chicken is sitting on the stone. This is a little stylized angel, and not a lot of detail. There's no facial features at all on these kind of carving. Same thing with Amish people. A lot of times when you see carving done with them, they don't like their faces. Mind your way, I'm sorry. They don't like their faces to be shown. This was a chess set that the Carving Club auctioned off this last year to,
Christmas time.
year before. That was the year before though. At our carving show here at the fire station. Each person in the club carved a character for the chess set. And I happened to do General Lee and General Grant. This is a kingfisher. If you're over at the creek by the dam that used to be down the other end, there was a couple old trees there by the dam. There used to be a kingfisher sit up in them trees all the time watching that pool of water there by the dam. But that's a class that I taught. Again, the little grasses at the bottom were made out of different kinds of paper and stuff. Okay. This is when Becky Halstead was up at Camp Drum. Their mascot up there was a mule. And so I carved this for her. The character mule with big teeth. Now I'm going to show you here, this is a piece that I did for the library in Endicott. The lady that used to do the story hour down there was my sister-in-law. And she had the story hour at the library down in Endicott for years and years and years. And when she died, they wanted to do something in memorial to her, so I did a clock. And you'll see it. These are the boys and the woman and the children there. Maybe you'll see the whole clock when it was done. That's almost 3.5 feet square. But that's a relief carving. And this is how you're going to do a nice relief carving and include a clock with it. But it's all leaves going up around. The little boys, when you look close at the carving, they got their high cuts, but they got a place for a jackknife in them. I don't know how many of you ever remember. But when I went to country school in Ross Corners, there's 3 grades in one room. I had a pair of high cuts. And Mrs. Steenberg would make me take my jackknife out of the high cuts before I could go to school. This is a nuthatch. And if you go to the World Championship, they judge you on the attitude of the bird. If it's a nuthatch, he wants to be going with his head down the tree. You know, if it's a spotted sandpiper like I have here, spotted sandpipers should be carved with their tails flicked up in the air because that's the way they walk, like this. And so if you have him just sitting there straight out, you wouldn't win a ribbon. So you want to catch the attitude. This is a hummingbird sitting on bellflower. And so you can see you can do all kinds of birds. All right. This is a scarlet tanager. It has the leaves in here are made out of paper. The berries are made out of epoxy, and the buds and everything are done out of epoxy also. Now this is a miniature robin. I have a lady, it's a good customer of mine, and she likes to buy miniatures. That's a quarter down at the bottom there. And the robin with the little piece and the base and everything, so you can see the size of it. Now I just did her, I don't think I have a picture of it, but I did a miniature hummingbird. Now miniatures at the World, when you go to competition, they have to be half size or less. So when you can get a hummingbird and make it half size, you're really down to some fine detail, okay? That's where that little high-speed grinder comes in. Okay. This is, my wife let me work in the living room on this piece. This was, I think, 10 feet long, I think it was. When you go down by the tracks, by the bake shop there on off Erie Street, there's a real estate sign on the roof there. And there it is, real estate. So the letters are carved in. That was carved out of red cedar. The letters are then done in 23 karat gold leaf, and it's like cigarette paper. You have to do it where there's no wind. You don't want to even breathe on it when you're using it because it's gone. You know, and it goes by the price of gold. I mean, it's expensive. This is a rifle I did for my son, model 94 Winchester, and it's carved with oak leaves and acorns. Again, you can decorate your gun stocks, okay? You can do anything with carving. Okay. There's the heron again before it was painted. Took it out and set it on a rock in my yard. Okay. Then you see the crest on the herons? That's really, really thin. And I made that out of bamboo. And you can heat it, curl it, and get it real paper thin. Okay. The fellow that they say was a mountain man, I did the hatch of the Indian tomahawk with a chickadee. His birthday was last year, and his girlfriend wanted a beaver. So I did a beaver gnawing on a picture frame, and she put his picture in the picture frame. And of course, then this is, you remember Len Lohmeyer when he was here? And his son graduated from Michigan State. And he wanted something unusual for him, so when he graduated, I carved his son, and he's a NASCAR fan, number 12 on it, and textured the sweater to look like, it was knit, with his diploma in his hand. And so that, again, a good example of what you can do with character carving. All right, this is a walking stick that I did for Mark Fisher. I got Tioga State Bank on the top, and then all the way down the walking stick I did money things. His wife ordered that for him for Christmas. This is a cane, again, a cane I did for my brother when he was sick. I made it out of apple wood, and I don't know if I got a picture of it on there or not, but down at the bottom I did a remark. I carved an apple in the wood too, down at the bottom of it. Yeah, there it is. Yeah. Okay. This is a largemouth bass that I did. And you try to find, with a bass like that, you try to find some kind of nice pieces. When you walk along the creek, when I go hunting or go fishing, I pick up all kinds of funny looking sticks or roots, and I can use them along with the carving. Okay. This is a set of 4 snowmen that we did for one of our Westgate Christmas parties. I think I had Mary O'Connor's name for that piece. These are some cardinals I did and a bluebird for a gentleman out in Michigan. And the other cardinal was somebody locally, I think. But the cardinal and the bluebird went to Michigan anyway. This is another loon that I did. And on that, carved the wood to make it look like water. Okay. There he is, looking at you.
Is that full size?
No, that was probably about a third size.
Okay.
I call that one cruising. This lady down in Charlotte, North Carolina, ordered a blue-winged teal. Now this is or a green-winged teal, I'm sorry. This is the blue-winged teal. They're a small duck. That's the green-winged teal, and the reason they get their names is right on them scapular feathers, right there. You see the green, the iridescent green. On a blue-winged teal, that'll be blue color. But they're one of the smaller North American ducks. Very good eating, a little greasy. Now this is me with a little stomach and a beard. This is a gentleman that I got to know down on Route 220 going into Muncie. He's a chainsaw carver. But he takes it a step further. He not only chainsaw carves, then he goes in with the Fordham and does a little more detail with it. But he does some beautiful, beautiful things. This was a wild turkey I did. That was a miniature. This was a class I taught of a saw-whet owl. Happened to be up in Ketchum Hollow one day, many years ago when I was hunting, and I walked up to one of these, just like that, right in front of me. He'd sit there and his eyes half closed. That's just about the pose he was in, so came up with that. But that was a class that I taught, and painting too. This is a full-size mallard that I did. It was fun doing the curly tail on the mallard in the back. So you can just cut the weight, take like a little chip with your plane. Take a plane, go across, make yourself a curl, and it's almost just like the curl. There's a little character duck. You can do characterized ducks too. You make a big head, whatever you want to do with it. So this is a cedar waxwing. By the way, a lot of cedar waxwings over on the upper dam in the summertime. You see the birds flitting around. You look at them close. Those are all cedar waxwings. Okay. You can also make candlesticks. So I say you can carve candlesticks. I did a bunch of candlesticks with all kinds of flowers around the base of them. The rooster I did for a real estate company. I think somebody was sucking up. I'm not sure, but. Now this is the wood duck. The duck in the background is the first duck I ever carved. I didn't bring it with me tonight. I should have, but you can see the progress I made. I mean, I've come a long ways, baby. There's a robin. And the stump again is made out of new wood to make it look old. And you see a little blossom in the background around the corner of it. There's a bluebird on a faucet. And the faucet and everything's all wood too. The pipe is all wood. The joints are all wood. Everything's wood. So they say you can do some interesting things with it. This is a sign I did for Collier's Butcher Shop down in Milan, Pennsylvania. You go down 220. They also have a rib place now, I guess, somewhere down there. I haven't been there yet. Ryan, you remember Roxanne, right?
Oh, yeah.
But that's all 23 karat gold leaf. Letters on there, too. This went out to Michigan. Parakeet they had, so see what you can get fine detail with them. That was kind of an interesting piece to do. I mean, I've never done a parakeet before, but there's a lot of different colors in them, a lot of different shapes. Their feet are even different than a regular bird. So there's a front view of it. There's an elk I did. I used to do pieces for the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation out in Colorado. This piece was probably about that big, and you can see the antlers and everything. Well, carving antlers like that and that small, that's where these high-speed grinders really come in. You don't have to worry about the grain. You can go any way you want with them, Here's a little character piece. The guy's fishing. He's in I call it the predicament. He's got a plug hooked in his butt. He's got a can of worms sitting up there in the top with open with some worms. The fish is down here in the water sticking his tongue out at him. And his box of tackles fell down over the side and almost in the water. Doyle Gibbs has that. Doyle used to coordinate the Tioga County Tourism. Here's again, I was in the Red Lobster? Yeah, Red Lobsters, I guess. I used to see these fresh fish and kind of character fish you see on the walls and everything. I did this for my daughter-in-law one year for Christmas. This piece got me New York State Carver of the Year in 1990. Help me, Georgia. 94. And these are semi-palmated plovers. And they're the one in the middle's watching a little crab down the sand. The one on the left is sleeping. The one up on top's kind of looking off in space. And then the grass again in the background. Okay. The rocks are all carved out of wood too. This is a piece I did for the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. It's a cougar sneaking up on a jackrabbit. I called it fast food. I couldn't come up with a name for it, and I called my son down in Tennessee, and I said, Dave, I said, here's the story. I got a cougar sneaking up on a jackrabbit, but I can't come up with a name. He said, why don't you call it fast food, Dad? So that's what I did. This is a hummingbird. Again, all those wild morning glories and everything, or bindweed they're called, are all carved out of wood too. This is a cockbird flying, miniature. I'm trying to figure out a way to mount it flying like that, so I put a posted sign up, and I have his toes just brushing against the top of the post. And it says, no hunting. It's got my name on the posted sign and a little barbed wire on it. Here's a piece I taught, this is the class I taught. It's a miniature mallard coming off the water with his wings out. This was a fun piece that everybody enjoyed this one. They had to carve the feathers both the top of the wing and underneath the wing both. This is, I call it my sultry tom turkey call. I took second in the nationals with this pattern, and so I did quite a few, made quite a few of these for collectors. But it's a box call, and it's got, bark, 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 bark. Santa Claus, this was out of a Christmas tree we used for Christmas. Cut the trunk off, dried it, and then carved the Santa Claus out of it. Another wood duck. It's a character, a friend of mine, Pete Earl, had his 60th birthday. He's kind of a tall, skinny guy with glasses, and he likes to garden. So, do that to him for his birthday. Here's a pair of green-winged teals that down at the Pennsylvania Sawmill Center for the Arts, they took best of show down here for that with that piece. Took best in class, best in species, and then best of show. Cedar waxwing. This is a barred owl, Mr. Conjul that has the Pyramid Mall in Syracuse. Not the Pyramid, the Carousel Mall. He owned this. And I understand here about a year ago, it was in his camp up on Lake Ontario, and the camp burned down. So the owl's gone. But that's a full-size female barred owl, about this big. I had 3 weeks to do that thing, and I'm telling you, that was a killer. Don't forget, I told you, every one of those feathered, one stroke at a time for every barb on it. Little chickadee on the spade, and the spade's all out of wood also. Where are we at, Gene?
That's it.
That's it? Okay. Well, thank you, Gene. I appreciate you doing that. I'm going to get the lights there again. You would see the shape basically, but you know where the arm is, and it'd be roughed out with a automatic machine, okay? And they duplicate it, and they would rough it out. So if you're teaching classes, they work out good because a lot of the wood's already removed, and people can see where the hat is, and they can see where all these things. So the carving then takes place after that. But what I do a lot of times, I'll draw my pattern, or I'll find a pattern I want. I bandsaw usually 2 views. I'll bandsaw out side profile, front profile, and then that gets me started. From there on, we go ahead and carve and shape it from there. You can buy cutouts too. I mean, like in these catalogs, you can buy cutouts. So people just get started and you want some cutouts or whatever. Over at a carving club, when I run a carving class, I'll usually bandsaw carvings out for them. Then we sit down and do the class. We carve the detail in after that.
Roger, all the carvings you've talked about tonight, with possibly the exception of Larry's box, the carving is the point. Okay, that's what you're doing, is presenting the carving.
Yep.
There's another huge class of carvings, where carving isn't the point. The carving is ornamentation on furniture, architecture, and so on and so forth.
Chair backs.
If you look right, chair backs, chests,
Mantles,
molds.
fireplace mantles.
There's an awful lot of moldings that are actually carved, or the word actually.
Picture frames.
Picture frames, things like that, right. Which you hardly touched on at all, but that's at least another display just like this.
Oh yeah. So you could have
Cover that stuff.
You could have another display, I mean, of just like picture frames, decorative picture frames, like Dick was saying, I mean.
Ball and claw feet on furniture.
Yeah, ball and claw feet, old camel stools used to have them, tables pedestal tables have them on the bottom. So they decorate, functional items. Any other questions? Did I bore you?
No.
Did I keep